Hello, everybody. I'm Jackie K. Cooper, and for today we have the Jackie K. Cooper interview. Yes, I'm interviewing Faye Kellerman. She is a renowned author, and her latest book is The Lost Boys, which will be released to the public in mid-January. You don't want to miss it. It's a Rena Lazarus, Peter Decker novel. There's been a series of these books. But I've been reading Faye Kellerman for years and years and years and have always wanted to speak with her, and today I get my chance. So without further ado, here is the Jackie K. Cooper interview with Faye Kellerman. All right, everybody, here we are. I'm so excited. We're talking with Faye Kellerman, somebody that I have read your novels for so long, been such an admirer. So thank you from the beginning for agreeing to do this interview with me. This is a big treat for me.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
And I have to tell you, we had some problems getting me the book, The Lost Boys. It came yesterday.
Oh, my goodness.
I read the entire book yesterday.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was great.
If
it had been a bad book, I never would have been able to do it. But it was such a good book. The words flew, the time flew. And this is a Rena Lazarus, Peter Decker book.
Yes.
And like number 20 something.
I think we're going on close to 30 by now.
Woo-hoo.
Long time. I've been writing since 1986 when The Ritual Bath came out. So
the first one, right?
Right.
And it was a Rena and Peter book, right?
Right. With the series, I think we have something like 27 or 8, and then with other standalone books and books I've written with my son and my husband, and then I wrote a book with my daughter a while back. So we're pushing over 30.
Well, and we'll talk about this later, but The Killing Season is my all-time favorite Faye Kellerman book.
Thank you. I loved it. I love the characters. Thank you.
I really do. But let's go back to the Peter Decker, Rena Lazarus stories, or vice versa. I don't remember which name comes first. But how did you come up with the concept? What brought it to your mind to write a husband and wife mystery series?
It evolved. Like everything, when you write your first novel, and as you mentioned, The Ritual Bath with Peter and Rena was my first novel, but I didn't know that was going to be my first novel. When you start writing, you write a little bit of this and you write a little bit of that. And of course, it was the first published novel, but it wasn't the first attempt that I did in writing. I made quite a few attempts, which I threw away or wasn't good, and it took me a while before I finally found a voice. What you want when you read a novel is to hear a song or to hear a symphony or anything like that, is to listen or to read it and say, yes, I recognize this person. This is a Faye Kellerman novel. So it took me a while. And why it took me a while is I was trying to write a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then I finally started writing a little bit what I was more familiar with and writing a little bit from the heart. The character of Rena Lazarus came first. And I knew I wanted to write mysteries because they appealed to my mathematical mind because they had a beginning, a middle, and an end. So she came first, but she was not the professional. So I decided to put a professional in there, and hence Peter Decker came. And then once I got them together, I said, okay, here's a single man and a single woman. Let's see what happens.
But Faye, your background, education-wise and everything, was not in journalism, was it?
No, not at all. I have a DDS. I am a dentist. I have a BA in mathematics. But I also have a very wicked and extremely creative imagination. And I never thought of writing as something that you do for a living. I always thought that writing or making up stories was kind of like a hobby or something you did to idle away the hours. I was always daydreaming in school. I was a good student, but taking walks or doing things, kind of a solitary person. Not that I didn't have friends, but I always gravitated towards things that were a little bit more of a solid, solo in nature because I could control it all. And it wasn't until I met John Kellerman, my
Famous.
husband, that it all clicked. I saw him writing novels. He came first. And I saw him writing novels, and I said, what's he doing? He's making up stories in his head, but he's putting them down on paper. I said, why don't I try to make up stories in my head? The stories were the problem, but putting them down on paper. And that's what took a long time to develop. There's a big difference between having an imagination and having a fleshed out novel. So that's what takes the time.
I have to tell you, I can relate to you because you said, journalism, writing novels was not something that people did for a living. I was a lawyer because you weren't a critic, or I'm from South Carolina. I grew up and you couldn't say, oh, I'm going to be a movie critic when I grow up, or I'm going to be a book critic when I grow up. So I went in, okay, but here I am, and here you are. But was it you were with Jonathan at the time that you started writing? Was that intimidating? Here you have this very successful novelist husband. Were you intimidated to say, oh, I don't want him to see what I've written, I don't want to go into the same field, anything like that?
Lucky for me, Jonathan was not the Jonathan Kellerman back then. He was not the Jonathan Kellerman. He also, and this was very, very helpful for me, Jackie, I saw him struggle. He had written 9 unpublished novels before The Ritual Bath came, not The Ritual Bath, when The Bow Breaks came into being. So his great groundbreaking novel, When the Bow Breaks, was published in 1985, and I was published in 1986. So we were mutual support systems.
Oh, y'all were comparable time period then with your careers.
Right. He was more of a novel. He had written some nonfiction, and he was the journalist. He wrote on the Daily Bruin, and he was a psych major, and he was the one who I considered to be the real writer in the family. So yes, in a way, I was very, very intimidated, and I did not want to show him anything that I wrote because I was very embarrassed about it. But he was extremely encouraging, extremely, not to the point where he's condescending. He would tell me things like, I think you need to, if I were you, I would do this, or maybe you should think of this, or something like that. But he was extremely encouraging. I think if he hadn't been encouraging, I wouldn't be writing today.
Well, I know that Jonathan, writes his novels. You write your novels. Jonathan has written with your son Jesse.
Correct.
And then you have written with your daughter Eliza.
Eliza, it's pronounced that way.
And y'all did a young adult novel,
right.
But there's never been a Jonathan and Faye novel.
Not a novel. We did a series of 2 books that were novellas called Capital Crime and Double Homicide, way back then. So it was 4 stories. They were novellas, 4 novellas that we wrote together. The way that worked is we collaborated on the story, or we kind of had an idea of where we want the story would write. I would write one draft, and he'd go over and write one draft, and I would correct his one draft, and we work strictly through email. And I think it really, really helped, because when you don't have that face saying what was wrong, or rather you just see what he did, and then you go, oh, that makes sense, okay. And it was really fun at that point. This is about 25 years ago, writing with him, because if I painted myself in a corner, and I often do with my mystery and thriller novels, I have to sit and go, oh, how am I going to get out of this? This doesn't make sense. And it takes a while. When I painted myself in a corner writing these little novellas, I said, let him work it out.
It's his problem.
It's his problem now.
All right, with Rena and Peter. Peter was the chief of detectives in LA for many books.
Right.
And then he decided to retire from that position and move to a small town, Greenbury, in Connecticut or New York?
No, upstate New York.
Upstate New York, where he is not, I guess he's a detective there.
Correct.
but he's not totally in charge.
No, he has somebody over him, but it's an extremely small department. And the reason I moved him there is because when you write a series for such a long time, you can't change the characters, the basic characters, to make them new characters. It just doesn't work. So, in order to prevent the series from going stale, you drop your characters into novel situations and see how they react. So I wanted to move him, and his new partner is much younger. I wanted a little bit of youth in there.
That's
And
Tyler McAdams.
that's Tyler McAdams.
Who is great.
He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. He started off as kind of a snot, and he has since learned to.
He's kept a trace of it, which is good.
Yeah, yeah. He's kind of evolved over the years, and of course he takes Decker as his surrogate father, as a lot of people do.
As does
Decker adopted a lot of people.
Yeah, and you adopted a lot of people. I mean, not you, but Rena. Excuse me.
Yeah, they have all these characters coming in and out of their lives, which makes the series very rich and makes the series very expansive. So I can drop one character in here and drop another character in here, and it's a lot of fun.
But you made Rena and Peter's marriage a Brady Bunch type of thing. But I don't have it in my head completely, but Peter has 2 sons from a previous marriage.
Rena has 2 sons from a previous marriage.
Rena.
He has a daughter from a previous marriage. They have a daughter together, and they have a foster son.
Gabriel.
Gabe, yeah.
Who I think is probably one of the most popular characters you've ever written.
Gabe and Gabe's family have been running characters since Justice, when I first introduced Chris Whitman and Terry Bachland. So they got together, and they've been, I dropped them in and out of the books, and they're in the Lost Boys.
I was so glad to see them back. And then we still have Tyler, which I didn't want Tyler to go away, because Tyler's getting ready to take the bar, or is taking. I mean, it's just, you're right. You can read the books, I think, as standalones, but it sure does make them richer if you've read the whole series.
I think so. I think in standalones, I try to make each individual book so that if you happen to pick it up, you can meet the characters. And a lot of times people have picked it up mid-series and then gone back to the beginning. It's interesting when I go back to the beginning of the series. No cell phones, no car phones.
That's something.
They still, you still had pay phones. No tracking devices using cell towers. DNA was there, but kind of in its infancy. Actually, in 1985, it wasn't even something. 86, it wasn't something. It came around in its infancy. Around 1995, they started to use it for criminal purposes. So the books that were written earlier really are of a piece and of a time. And it's interesting, as you said, if you follow the series, all the technology that goes along with it, it does not replace character and plot. Technology can't do it. But it does make it a little bit more interesting on how you can develop your plots. I will say that.
Well, I know I anticipate these books so much because I enjoy them so much. But it seems like, oh my gosh, it's been forever since we've had this. But how regularly do you turn them out?
I try to do it once every year, once every 18 months. The Lost Boys will come out in January, and I think the book following it will either come out that August of 2021, or maybe January of 2022.
That's called The Hunt.
That's called The Hunt. Yeah, very good. You're up to date, and
I'm on to this stuff. I'm keeping up. I was thrilled to death that you were already working on the next part of this book, because The Lost Boys does leave you with some things that you want resolved.
They were. You have to go. Yeah, it's not a part 1, part 2, because The Lost Boys has a plot that goes in and of itself. But there is carryover. There is a longer arc story that carries over to the hunt. So, and that was kind of fun too, because you can introduce, as I said, you pick characters in and out, and you introduce characters in and out. And Peter and Rena are very, very happy in Greenbury, but who knows what the future is? They just are talking about buying a house in Israel. You know, Rena is a traditional Jew. She's an Orthodox Jew, and but it was his idea to try to find a place there. So they've kind of come together, even though they were very opposites when they met, and now they've kind of, over the past 30 years, kind of grown together.
Because he was Southern Baptist, wasn't he?
He was, and his,
I grew
there
up.
you go, and his mother still is. His mother lives in Florida, and she's still the same person, and their relationship, the book that I just wrote, The Hunt, has Ida Decker in there. They go on a trip to Israel and they come back and visit their mothers. Rena's mother is in Miami, and Decker's mother is outside of Gainesville. And they go and visit her. And I think she kind of, Ida is a wonderful, wonderful character, very strong, very independent, very much a mind of her own. But she has more in common with Rena, because they're both religious people, than she does with her own son sometimes. So the dynamics are a lot of fun.
Hey, when you're writing in this series, who is your favorite character to write about?
Oh, I love them all. I love them all. It's whoever is in the book sometimes. Rena, they're very different. Decker is an obsessive, methodical, we'll see it to the end, hardworking, and very, very good cop. Rena is a divergent thinker. She will come out with an idea, whereas Decker sometimes has a little tunnel vision. Rena will pull something out, and it'll change his way of thinking that'll ultimately solve the case. She's very smart. She's very intuitive. She doesn't try to compete against him in case solving. She leaves that up to him. But if he talks about it, since she can take a step back, and she's an intuitive person anyway, she can say, hey, have you ever thought about this? And you go, whoa, no, I haven't. So she's as much a part of the case, even if it's more in the background.
Now, her impact is always felt, or her presence, that's a better word. Her presence is always felt.
Thank you.
But you really, I mean, you know, I'm talking to Faye Kellerman, but when you write the book, you have to be multiple personalities, because each one of the characters I've observed has a distinct voice, has a distinct personality. And so you have to take your head and get into each of those characters for them to be valid.
Yeah, Jackie, I have a lot of conversations in my head.
I thought, you know, I could just see all the 15 faces of Faye.
Yeah, they're all talking to each other. And sometimes I'm writing, and I'll write some dialogue, and my character in my head will say, I would never say that, erase it. Don't do that. Or if I'm writing from a point of view of a man, oh, this is sounding way too feminine, erase that. I wouldn't talk like that. So I have multiple conversations in my head over and over and over and over. And that's what dialogue is. It's just people talking. So I have to hear it before, just a second. I have to hear it before I can write it.
So it comes into your head, and then the dialogue goes down to paper or to the computer.
Yeah, and it's changed, and it's over, and we do it over and over and over, and until I get it right. It has to be gotten right.
I'm flip-flopping here on you, but The Ritual Bath was your first published novel. It's just amazing to me that the series that has been the most successful was there from the very start. And how did was the reaction that you got so positive that you thought, oh, I need to continue this? Or were you just so locked into the characters that you decided you wanted to continue this?
It was a little bit of both, but I think I was more locked into the characters. The Ritual Bath, when it first came out, I mean, now it's in God knows how many printings, but when it first came out, it was published
Right.
as it's a tiny, tiny book, you know, like 1,500 copies, maybe one copy per bookstore for the whole nation. It was published as a very, very small book. It got a decent paperback sale. I don't even know where paperbacks are anymore, but it got a decent paperback sale, and they were willing to go again. And I said, you know, I like these characters. I can write another book with them, and that was Sacred and Profane. And then I took a break with them, and I wrote this big historical novel called The Quality of Mercy, this sweeping historical novel. And then after all of that, I wanted to get back to the 20th century as it was back then. So then I wrote another one. And by that time, I discovered that I really liked my characters, and they were great vehicles for telling whatever story I wanted to tell. Why invent new ones if the ones that are working are very popular, and they talk to me, um, which was wonderful.
You know, I was thinking as I was reading The Lost Boys that, you know, it's from the start. It's from the first words almost that you get into the book, and the first Peter Rena scenes in the book. It's like coming into a warm room on a really cold day.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
just it's just so much that comes across emotionally, not just through the words, but through the relationship that draws it to me. And because I love these characters so much and love the book so much, I wanted to know, has there ever been any interest in a movie version or a TV series like they're doing now with all the books? Has there been any interest in the
Yes,
ring?
there has been over the years interested in, and we've sold some rights, and we did this and we did that. As of right now, I'm just keeping a lid on it, because every time we sell it to somebody, they have really kind of nutty ideas of what they want to do
Yeah.
with the characters. So, and frankly, I don't need the money. You know, why ruin the characters? There's only one reason to sell to movies: if you really want them to see characters on a screen, or if you need the money. My characters are very internal. They do a lot with internal thoughts. The books have a lot of internal thoughts. They have action, but that's not the primary driver in my novels. It's how people figure things out, so there's a lot of thoughts. I think that might translate a little difficult to a screen. Maybe a small screen, definitely not a large screen. I don't see it as a large screen. The Killing Season, as you mentioned before, I think that's a big screen movie.
I'd love it. I
We'll see.
love. I really would. Who knows? I did think though, you're Jewish
Yes,
and Orthodox.
observant. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm not familiar with the terminology and everything, but I wondered when you created your books, there's so much of that religion in the book and the rituals and the observances and everything. Did you think of this as a selling point or possibly a hindrance, or what was your mind thought on making the character?
As I said, when you sell your first book, you don't know you're going to do your first book. I wrote it because I wanted to write something that was close to my heart. Okay, I wanted to write something that I knew about, that was close to my heart, and I like learning about everybody are out there, different cultures, different um, rituals, different everything, religions, whatever. And I thought, well, this is my religion. This is what I'm close to. This was what I can write about with feeling. Maybe somebody out there would want to know about Jewish uh, cultures and religions, just like I'm curious about other things. So I'm instantly,
Educational. I mean, I feel like, you know, that you are exposing a whole area of people who had no knowledge at all and who learn. And I love, you know, Shabbat, and you know the way that you observe that. That's, you know, that's something that you don't find in every book that comes along. So that's so much an integral part of it.
You don't, and in today, religion is a dirty word in a lot of things, and it's not to me. And I am a religious person, and Rena is a religious person. And what I want to do is explain what it is. But as you read the books, deep down, you see the characters are all the same. People are all the same. It doesn't matter, color, race, sex, whatever. We all have these overriding emotions that are transferable from people to people, from culture to culture, from race to race, from religion to religion. So you show the meaning, how Rena gets meaning, and eventually Decker gets meaning out of all these rituals, what they are, what they observe, and the beauty of them. But more, or just as important, you get to see them as people. So they're not Jewish people, they are people who are Jewish.
I want to say one last thing, and I need to wrap it up. But you're so great, I could talk to you for hours. But Rena, you said, you're a religious person. Rena's a religious person. That's not necessarily the thing these days.
Mm-hmm.
Rena is also an independent woman, but she is also so supportive. I love the way that she packs sandwiches for him when he goes on the road, and she does all these things. I mean, some people may say, "Oh, no, we're beyond that." But it's such their relationship. Each one supports the other,
Right.
and I love that about your stories. I really, really do.
I think in this day and age, anybody can pack a sandwich for anybody, and it doesn't mean anything other than you have the desire for that person to have a sandwich on the road.
Yeah.
It's not making a statement. It's not women, pro women. It's she's simply packing a sandwich because she loves her husband and wants to give him something to eat so he won't be hungry. And that's the person she is.
That's who she is. Faye Kellerman, I want to tell you that this has been a dream of mine to interview you. I didn't know it would be by Skype, or I would actually get to see you or whatever, but you have lived up to every concept I had.
Thanks.
So it's just been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking this time out of your day. And I think the book comes out on January 12th.
Either the 12th or the 14th. I have to go again and look, but it's mid-January.
Yeah, this month. I hope it is a huge success.
Thank
I did mention you and Jonathan, from what I read in doing research, are the only married couple to have bestsellers on the New York Times at the same time.
Correct.
I think y'all are unique in that way, but you're unique in 100,000 ways. Thank you, and I hope we can do this again.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Thanks for having me, and have a good year.
Same to you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
There you have it, folks, the Jackie K. Cooper interview with Faye Kellerman. Be sure you get her new book, The Lost Boys, and make sure that you tell your friends and family about this interview that I've had with Faye Kellerman so they can watch it also. We're going to be having more author interviews coming up in the future, and I hope that you will enjoy them. But for today, this has been Jackie K. Cooper and the author interview.